Thank you, sir. We'll start our 6-minute round with Mr. Barrett. Please go ahead, sir.
I appreciate your comments at the opening of the meeting. It's interesting to hear that we've had a change of heart by Justin Trudeau's $9 million man, Tom Clark, and that he is now, after having previously said he would appear, and then saying he wouldn't appear, and then saying that he was on leave, and then when his office was contacted by media, they were told that he was, in fact, in office. Now saying that he is willing to meet. So we have very disingenuous at best responses from Mr. Clark. It raises all kinds of questions about who the direction came from for Mr. Clark not to appear as he had originally committed to this week. And this is, of course, in the context of a $9 million residence on Billionaires Row that is going to serve one person and duplicate existing space that the Office of Canada's representative in New York already has. And we heard from Trudeau government officials last week that they were incredibly proud of the $9 million Billionaires Row accommodations that they got for Justin Trudeau's pal, and said it never occurred to them. It never occurred to them that it would be optically bad to spend $9 million on a place on Billionaires Row for a member of the liberal elite, which I think that response, they're being unaware how out of touch this was, says everything you need to know after 9 years of Justin Trudeau and his NDP Liberal government. Mr. Clark had agreed to come to be here today, and he backed out, and now he's saying he will come on one of those dates. I will say, Chair, that let's preempt the conversation we'll have on the date that's selected, that if Mr. Clark doesn't come on that date, that he'll have exhausted every reasonable courtesy that this committee could extend him, and that as the motion did pass unanimously for him to be here, that he must be summoned because he will be in defiance of this committee's wishes. It's unanimous wish, and of course will have demonstrated himself to again not tell the truth, just like he did yesterday when he said he was on leave, but in fact was not. So we'll wait and see, but it's clear that this is an effort by the government to try and delay and distract from this latest $9 million scandal. So I have a question for our witnesses. In as brief an answer as possible, is Midtown East appropriate for representational space for a G20 country in your estimation?
Hi, thank you for the question. The quick answer is yes, it is. About 95% of the consulates in New York City are located in this neighborhood or just abutting this neighborhood. There's about 136 consulates and all but 7 are located there.
And to the other witness, sir, do you agree?
Yes, I agree 100%. The Midtown East and the Midtown Corridor in general, all of the examples we mentioned earlier in our opening remarks are based in that area, within about 15 minutes from the UN.
Okay, and just for my understanding, 466 Lexington Avenue is in that area. Just an audible yes would be, or no. You indicated yes, sir?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. So that's where the Consulate General of Canada in New York is located, is there. And so when we talk about the space that G20 and G7 countries have, we have space there. We have it in that key space. We have space that in 2018, the Government of Canada, financed by the taxes of Canadians, paid for upgraded space, representational space, meeting space, space where meals could be served, events could be held, and meetings could be had at that address, at 466 Lexington Avenue on the 20th floor. But what we have now is a $9 million condo, and that condo is supposed to replace another condo that the government of Canada had procured. So my question is, what increased value will Canadian taxpayers get by having a duplicate, having a second location that's in a desirable neighborhood? Obviously, other countries are spending big sums of money. I'm not accountable to their taxpayers. I'm accountable to Canadians, as is this Liberal government. What is the increased value that we get by having a second space?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I can't speak to the value of a second space versus a first space, it is my understanding that there is an office space and a residence space, and that the residence space generally has a facilities requirement as well to be performing as a mission asset. And so needing that space sounds like the right choice for the government of Canada. The initial
just quickly, sir, what was your commission on this sale? Just the number, if you could.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the question. The commission was pre-negotiated as part of the RFP process with the government of Canada.
And what was the number, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The commission that is received by agents during any sales process is always received by the selling party, not by the buyer's side. So the seller's party paid out a commission of 4% of the transactional value to our firm.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Mr. Kuzmirchuk, please go ahead for 6 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And every time now I hear Conservative colleagues like Mr. Barrett speak, I'm reminded of the fact they made a video recently called Canada Our Home, in which they badly manipulated the truth and badly manipulated Canadians. And in that same tradition, I see Mr. Barrett mischaracterizing the communication between Mr. Tom Clark and the clerk. And so I wanted, through you, Mr. Chair, I wanted to ask the clerk to clarify and confirm that Mr. Tom Clark, from the beginning, was open to meeting with the committee, but simply was not available on August 27th and was looking for an alternate date. Can the clerk, through you, Mr. Chair, kindly confirm that for the record? What that original correspondence was from Mr. Clark, or excuse me, from GAC.
Well, the original email that I received on motion was July 24th. August 8th, there was email that stated, in Marc Olivier, MOG, our clerk's absence, to inform you that Tom Clark, Consul General of Canada in New York, would be available to appear on Tuesday, August 27, 2024. GAC is waiting for official invitation to be sent to them. So that was on August 8th. We received an email from the clerk de jure, as I jokingly call it, because MOG is away on vacation, that Mr. Clark, or Global Affairs, confirmed that he would appear on the 27th. Then on the 24th, we received information that he would not be appearing. And then yesterday, there was a bit of convoluted back and forth between the clerk and GAC. At the end, it came out, wait till September 3rd, we will discuss a new date. And then this morning, we received confirmation Mr. Clark would be available on the 4th or the 12th of September.
So, but as I understand it, because I've seen various comments on social media and elsewhere, Mr. Clark, through GAC, was working with our committee to find a time to appear at this committee. Is that correct?
The email I received from the clerk on the 8th said GAC had confirmed his appearance. On the 24th, they withdrew it. And then yesterday was, we'll see. Then it was, when he's back September 3rd, we'll find a date. Then this morning, we received confirmation of available dates. So it appears that it did confirm they're not available. now this morning are to dates made available.
Yes, he's made himself available to this committee to appear. I wanted to get that on the record. I wanted to ask our witnesses here today, the listing price for the unit was 9.3 million Canadian. The government paid 8.84 million Canadian, which is $500,000 off the price. Can I ask how we were able to knock that price down?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the question. The unit itself is located in the landmark portion of the Steinway factory building, a building that dates back about 100 years. And the development had originally seen some relatively high pricing and hadn't been selling at the pace they were looking to sell. So they were starting to reduce the pricing, which brought the pricing of the unit into the scope of parameters that the government of Canada was seeking to stay within. At that point, the unit that was selected by the client was the last remaining residence in this landmark tower, and as such, for the developer would be considered a success if they were able to dispose of the last remaining unit. So they were friendly to the negotiation position that we took for the government of Canada.
I'm looking at, you had visited 21 properties, as I understand, were actually looked at. It started as 39 properties, went down to 21 properties that were looked at. The value or the price varied between $8 million and $21 million. The Canadian government chose pretty much the lowest price property. Do you feel this was a good deal for Canadians and taxpayers?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the question. As per my opening remarks, we believe as real estate agents that this was a very attractive end price for a very attractive asset in a rarefied part of the city that is, per Mr. Miller's commentary, frequented by 95% of the government dignitaries from other foreign organizations. The government of Canada was able to secure the asset well below the average price that other foreign governments pay for their assets. So it's our estimation that it was a very attractive price.
Mr. Abo, do you expect, in your experience, do you expect the value of this property to go up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the question. We can't speculate, but we can certainly say that the Steinway building, as an example, is considered by many in the industry as one of the finest examples of modern architecture. They're certainly not going to be building many more of them, and there is only limited amount of space there. It is a prime location, so given that real estate is primarily around location and space and availability, we believe it will substantially increase in price over the years.
And
I'm sorry, we are past our time, Mr. Kuzmirchuk. Mrs. Vignola, please go ahead.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Miller, Mr. Eibel. Mr. Miller, when we talk about the median price in New York, and that price is equivalent to $1.6 million, that means that there are 50% of properties that are under that value and 50% that are above that value of $1.6 million. Let's take the median price of $1.6 million. What can a buyer aspire to purchase for $1.6 million in Manhattan? Where can he buy this property? Is it going to be well located?
Monsieur Miller?
Mr. Miller.
There's no translation coming into my headset.
Ah, ça va bien.
I would say it, but I'm not going to do that myself.
Mr. Miller, there is a lower down on Zoom. There is a, you'll see, I think it shows a planet. You can click on that. That'll do the translation. And I apologize. We should have done that in advance for both of you.
Thank you.
You found it?
Yes,
And that's
my
your time,
apologies.
Mrs. Vignola. Sorry. we'll start from the beginning. Can you restart your question, Mrs. Vignola, please?
Oui, bien sûr.
Of course. The median price in New York is $1.6 million, which means that 50% of properties are sold for less than 1.6 million and 50% are sold for more than $1.6 million. What does $1.6 million, Mr. Miller, get you in New York? And is that would that building be located close to UN headquarters?
I'm sorry.
If Mr. Miller is unable to hear the question, I might be able to answer it.
S'il vous plaît, Monsieur Abel.
Yes, please, Mr. Abel.
So, if I understand the question correctly, you're saying that the average price of an apartment in New York City is $1.6 million, meaning 50% less, and median price, and 50% more cost more. And the question was, in what areas can you purchase such an apartment? And I think the answer, simply put, is you can purchase an apartment in pretty much every area for $1.6 million. That's a meaningful amount of money. However, once you start adding certain requirements to that apartment, you will certainly dwindle down the number of units depending on what area you're looking in. Mr. Miller's firm has a number of studies that can actually tell you exactly how much apartment per square foot you can get in each neighborhood in New York City. And I'm sure he'd be happy to share that with you.
Et à 1,6 million de dollars.
And for $1.6 million, well, what can that get you? What can you get in Midtown? Is it possible to get something in Midtown? And what would you get with it? Would that be appropriate for the consul's needs?
Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I figured out the translation. 1.6 million US in Midtown would get you probably a studio apartment, which sounds like would not be adequate for the needs of the consulate.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abel, Mr. Miller, you can chime in if you want to. In the description of the building and the unit, there are luxury aspects, for example, the type of walls, the type of floors, the amenities, the fridge, the stove. If these luxury elements were not included in the unit, would the apartment, without all the marble and expensive amenities, would that apartment still be sold at the $6 million US figure?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. The answer would be no. That the value of the property is the essentially sum total of the amenities that go into it. So the quality of the construction would be inherent in the value of the property.
OK. Donc, la même grandeur.
I understand. So the same size without those benefits would be a little less expensive, but less attractive for buyers.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. That is correct.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Bachrach, over to you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to both of our witnesses for appearing and helping us understand the context in which this transaction took place. a little bit better. The one thing that stood out to me was the price drop from 10.7, or sorry, the asking price, the drop in asking price from 10.7 million to 6.9 million. And I'm just wondering if that's something that is usually seen. Is that out of the ordinary? It seems like a fairly significant drop in asking price.
Thank you for the question. I'll chime in and maybe Mr. Miller will add at the end. It is fairly unusual to watch any type of real estate asset priced at one end and then reduced down to 40% without selling at that same time. There was a very specific dynamic taking place in that area, and actually, especially with that building, there was a transition in ownership, and there was a desire by the new owners to, in essence, transact. And so that willingness to transact turned out to be the benefit of the government of Canada.
Okay, thanks for that. Mr. Miller, do you agree?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I do.
Okay. Looking at the appraisal that was done for the condo that was purchased, the appraiser notes cautious optimism when it comes to the long-term health of the Central Park South real estate market. It says, quote, "The neighborhood's enduring popularity and limited new inventory are likely to sustain long-term residential demand." Is that a view that both of you gentlemen share?
I'll thank you for the question. Yes, it is that there is a distinct difference in the condo versus co-op market. The Midtown neighborhood has seen it's essentially the central business district of Manhattan, and it has seen an influx of residential condo development, which is thought to be in the long run, we're expecting price growth going forward.
So just on the surface, it would seem that this is a reasonable investment if you're just looking at the chance that this property appreciates over, the years or decades that the government of Canada holds it.
Thank you for the question. I can't speak to whether or not it's a good investment. I can speak to the market conditions, and the market conditions suggest, and as we have seen for the past decade, that the condominium market has a more of a potential upside direction over the long term than the existing co-op market, which currently outnumbers condominiums in the market 3-1.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Abbo?
I would agree with Mr. Miller's assessment, and thank you for the question. The area is still up and coming in the sense that there is a lot of new development that has been released now to the market, and that has been more or less adopted by the market. And again, with the continued influx of foreign investment into New York, we anticipate that will continue to grow up. We agree with the appraiser's assessment.
Thanks for that. Now, one of the criteria that led to the conclusion that the former property was no longer suitable had to do with rules imposed by the cooperative in which it was located that constrained GAC's ability to hold events at the property. I'm just curious, you noted that the current property is not located in a co-op. Are there any rules that constrain GAC's use of the property?
Thank you for the question. The rules of a condo building are very different from the rules of a co-op building. One of the reasons, like you said, that the government appeared to have a desire to move to the new location. The new location certainly has rules. Every building in New York City, I would imagine anywhere, has rules. We have actually acquired those rules and shared them with the committee, I believe, or they are on their way to you. But it is our understanding that upon review of those rules, that they are severely less limiting than what a co-op bar was presenting in the past.
And Mr. Abbo, I don't know if we've gone over this already, but what precisely were the rules that were problematic at the former location?
Thank you for the question. So I can't speak to those rules exactly, as I was not the holder of the apartment, nor restricted by those rules. But in general, co-op boards are more restrictive. It is very focused on a specific type of family and family lifestyle, and not necessarily suitable for a public residence of the sorts of a Mission of Canada.
Now, at the Consular General's property, there are sort of these two separate roles. One, obviously, is this diplomatic role when it comes to entertaining other diplomats and high-profile officials and having events, that sort of thing. The other role is responding to the needs of Canadian citizens, particularly emergency travel requests. Are members of the public, so Canadian citizens who need emergency assistance with travel documents, that sort of thing, are they able to access the new property without any barrier?
Thank you for the question.
I have to interrupt. Just a very brief answer, please.
The condo, the new condo, has very strict security measures and several points of entry that are supervised. And so they would need to be cleared by the residents of the condo in order to access it. But if they were cleared, they certainly could access it.
Okay, Thanks very much. Mr. Bachrach, I'm glad you brought up the issue of the condo rules. Global Affairs actually promised us at our last meeting to have some information back on those rules that day or the very next day. I checked with our clerk yesterday, and they still have not gone back to us. So I'm glad you've brought it up with Global Affairs if you are watching this today. And I assume you have. You owe us those documents. You promised us those documents, or at least a response about it. So I hope you will get to providing it to this valued committee. Thank you for that time for the paid announcement.